Thank you, Jay. Everybody have a good lunch?
Yes.
Batteries recharged? Hopefully you're going to find my presentation to be very casual. That's the way I'd like it. I'm a storyteller. Some people like Pete Roth that know me know that and Spencer. I'm a bit of a storyteller, and hopefully some of these stories will add some credence to what the message I'd like to convey. It was in the fall. I was driving my 22-year-old daughter to an international flight. And I'm driving along, and she says, "You know, Dad, for all the years you've been in sales, you must have accrued a lot of miles, a lot of kilometers." So I quickly did the math. And by the way, I call myself a pan-Canadian as far as this industry is concerned in particular, because I realized that over the last 30 years, the first 10 were in Alberta, the second 10 was in Ontario, and my last 10 just has finished in BC. So I've had the pleasure of working in this industry as a supplier's agent, multi-line agent, and as management. And hopefully what I can share with you and my thoughts were some of the experiences and lessons that I think I've learned, some of them from distributors as well. It's a sharing industry, and bring those to you today. I thought about it, and I probably have some 1.2 to 1.3 million kilometers, accident-free as far as I'm concerned anyways. And the one thing that does is that ass time, I call it, because I live in the Fraser Valley, and I go into biz about 12 days a month when I'm not traveling Canada with my reps, our reps, and it gives you a lot of thinking time. And it was at that time, this fall as well, that PPPC put a call out for speakers. And as hokey as it might sound, I thought to myself, you know what? This industry's been really good to me. I've really enjoyed it. What could I do to give something back? When I reflect back on my career, the first chunk of my career post-university was in sporting goods. Always on the supplier side, originally as a retail kid. And then I got to know some of these multi-line reps, and post-university I went, I think I want to be one of those guys. And along the way, as I had the pleasure of working closely and building companies like Adidas, Solomon, high-tech footwear, some really great experiences. But you know what's really different about that industry and this industry? In that industry, when you get a call, now remember in those days there was a lot of growth in independent stores. Today, big box has got the stranglehold on that industry. Thank God they don't have it in this industry. That when you met with a future retailer and he wanted to apply for your line, there were a lot of questions posed to the rep and the company, be it on the show floor or one-on-one, from that retailer. How do we work together? How do you want to work with me? What will you need? How do you want your orders presented? And I'm not here to knock anybody. This industry's been around since gypsies sold combs. That seldom happens in this industry. Often, a phone call will go into somebody like myself or one of the reps, and how often, I need a quote, I need it now. That's all they know. They know a style number, and they know they want best price, and they want to know if you got it in stock. But if you start asking questions relative to who you're talking to, and in our case, I'll try not to refer to our own company a lot today, but we'll ask whether they're full-time or part-time. Because our ethics in our company is we will not sell part-time distributors. Because we don't think it's fair to some 3,500 full-timers that are out there. I remember in the 80s when this industry went like this. We used to say there's 3,500 distributors and there's 1,000 that can't afford the yellow pages. So there is no lack of distributors. So today's about sharing with you those practices that we find as suppliers that I'm sure many of you in this room are employing on a daily basis. But if you can leave here with a couple of tips, I'll tell you what's going to happen. You are going to enrich your relationship with that supplier. And when you need that favor, it's going to make you look like king and queens to your buyer. That supplier should have no reason not to bend over backwards because you're his or her partner in business. And my first commendation is to congratulate each and every one of you for being here. Not at this session necessarily, but at this convention and trade show. Because we know, I would say less than 25% of the members in Canada will be at this show this week. And as I traveled British Columbia in the first 7 years I lived there, 2005 to 2011, as a multi-line, I would do my damnedest to convince the Westerners in small and medium size, and including the city of Vancouver, that they should invest in coming to the show. Oh, it's so expensive, George. I don't think I need it. All I need's the roster. You know? And I challenged a number of them. I said, I'll tell you what, it's not expensive at all. How are you going to raise the bar on the competition in your own town? Say it was Nanaimo. What's going to set you aside? Not just the fact you say you're a member, but you're an active member. And I would say to them, I'll tell you what, I'll give you one tip. And if it doesn't work, here's what I'm going to do for you. You go to the show, and on that trade show floor in the first 2 hours, and sometimes they were groups, say 2 or 3 people, you assign one person to go to your key vendors and ask what's the hottest item they got on the clearance list where they have inventory. You will take that knowledge home and you'll pay for that trip in a week. If in fact you're the salesperson you think you are, you will pay for that trip in a week. Now think of all the other things you're going to gain being at that show. Some of them did it, but no one ever came to me for my wallet. Never came to me for my wallet. So congratulations, you're raising the bar on your own individual businesses, and that's highly, highly commendable in what is an incredibly competitive business for yourselves and for ourselves today, and especially with the internet being involved. As I drive a lot too, and I came up with another concept, and you got to bear with me. I need a prop. And this is a little spin on a commercial that I think some of you may be familiar with. I've been selling promotional products for now over 25 years. Not necessarily did someone tell me I had to, nor did they lock my wrists on a rolling rack. I do it because I really, really like it. That's it. Because if you're not having fun in this business, you're in the wrong business. And as an agent, and even now when I go out and do some product knowledges with reps, I'll tell you what, there are days when I leave some product knowledges and I've seen paint that's more exciting. So we'll get to product knowledges in a minute. So let's pass out here. I've got my own little cheat PowerPoint, but if you want to write any bullet points from what I'm presenting in what I call the 7 habits, and I didn't totally mean to plagiarize Mr. Covey, one of my favorite authors. Thanks, Jay. If you get those all out. See if we can. And I want to leave enough time that I don't want this necessarily to be a one-way street. And we'll see, in fact, if I do leave enough time, happy to take comments from the floor, and comments, at least to me as one supplier, and I've talked to 7 of my peers in this industry that I respect the most that have also added some information to my seminar. And I'm here at the show for the next 3 days. And I think you'll know where to find me. And I'd be happy to hear your dialogue on what suppliers can do for you to make your lives easier too. Absolutely. It's a two-way street. Because how many of you, just think of the day you started either to join the business or start your company. Okay? And by the way, I want to take a step backwards. Can I get a show of hands for people in the room that have only been in the industry for 1 to 3 years? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? This just helps me a little bit. And 3 to 6. 3. And then we've got, I didn't go much further than this, 6 plus. You can, the majority. So we're talking at least, I would say, 18 at least. I think these people will tell you that the learning curve isn't over yet. It's not even close, and I'm not so sure. It's never over, but there used to be an idiom that it's at least a 2-year learning curve. I know it is on the supplier rep or supplier agent side, that's for sure. And how many of you, when you got excited about starting your business or entering our industry, thought you would end up working 18 hours a day, being tired, frustrated, and wondering if it's all worth it all? Now, along the way, we know that suppliers lead to that. The way suppliers work with you or don't work with you or don't communicate with you, they lend to that frustration, that sense of fatigue. And again, maybe some of the tips that I can give you today and any dialogue we have after, and back to the trade, because there is a supplier-distributor relationship council here every year. Go to it. Put your feedback out there. I think it's tomorrow. Do it, for sure. Okay. So let's see if I can get this green button to work. Okay. You're going to, on the show floor Wednesday, you will find, no doubt, a supplier you've never worked with. And you're going to look at the goods and you're going to say, hey, I want to be part of that. I want to be part of that. Introduce yourself. You have an opportunity here to meet the management teams of some of these companies, and you have the opportunity with some of your existing suppliers to meet with the CSRs that you only talk to on the phone or have never even met face to face. Take advantage of those opportunities, because that's part of you building a relationship with that supplier. Now understand that there are going to be questions. How long have you been in business? Obviously, where you're located. When you're in the wearables business, we'll often ask, are you a decorator? Do you do your own decoration? Do you contract it? Okay? What's the level of your staff if you're an owner? The industry will get, and within some parts of the industry today, in some cities and towns, there can be a situation where a supplier may not want to split the market up more than he has now. He may think in a Grand Prairie with, say, 7 to 9 distributors that he's saturated. And if he doesn't quite get the answers back he was looking for, it doesn't mean you're automatically going to get a distributorship to begin with. I think there's a sense in this industry is that the minute you apply, you get it. Well, you don't get it in any other industry. Why would it be in this industry? But if you start building that relationship with them the correct way, with their rep or with management team right away, and you're in the business full time, there's no reason why not. No reason why not. And for those that are used to phoning for a quote, forget it. I'd be suspicious if you got a quote and you got a feedback that says, oh, and I'm giving you my best price. The conversation went 1 minute, they're giving you a quote and they're giving you their best price. What's that say about the integrity of that particular supplier? Because 10 years from now, when you're in business and that new guy down the street opens, that's what they're going to say to that new guy after you've just given him 10 years of good business. It'll come back. It'll come back. We, the trade, get the half-completed applications all the time. Half completed. And we're expected to come up with a credit line. Often ask that supplier, because we have certain companies that won't answer our request for credit on some of you in this room, all of you in this room. They just won't. They won't comply. So we have a list at our company of 12 to 15 companies we have an ongoing relationship with that we get the answers back, and we partner back and forth and help each other with each other's risk assessments for credit. Okay? But please fill those applications in, and don't expect your account's going to get opened and be shipped today, and you're just, oh no, I just want to give you a credit card. I don't need to fill this shit out. Just ship me. They want to serve you. At least hopefully they want to serve you, and they want to serve you well. And when it comes down to those companies that decorate, we don't decorate normally, is you might even want to put your cell number down. Why your cell number? Your greatest asset is your time. And there's a problem with the proof. There's a problem with the artwork. And you're on the road. And your voicemails on the office is just voicemail. But if you give an opportunity to call you on cell, you might save a day. A whole day in the process. Oh, and many of you have a standard credit app doc. That's fabulous. It saves you a ton of time. Just enclose it with their standard credit app form and sign and say as per enclosed. But most of them will want you to sign their legal terms and conditions document. But those of you that have the standard one, of course the trade should accept it. The distributor rep relationship. Some people have said that in the world of the internet, we don't need reps anymore. If the world of sales wasn't the world of relationship building, I doubt any of you in this room would be here today. I really do. And hopefully companies, I'm as fond as a quality multi-line as I am of a quality company dedicated employee. Sadly, history has it that it's the law of average, that you know who your best reps are out there. Who are the ones that are communicating? Who are the ones that are getting back to you on the phone? Who are the ones that are the best problem solvers and really, really closely working with you? And as it relates to your relationship with that rep or reps, you're in a position to establish the rules. There's an idiom out there right today that drop-ins are done. In the 80s, sporting goods, promotional products, drop-ins were easy. People enjoyed them. Stop, let's have a coffee. Let's chat. All of us in this world today are working for 1.5 people. Most of you don't have the time for drop-ins. So if you don't have times for drop-ins, don't tell them. Establish a new set of rules for 2016. Some of you go so far to put it on the glass door. What's that say about the trade? But let them know. You appreciate scheduled appointments only. And when they want an appointment, are they conveying with you why? What's the agenda? What could you possibly work on that you can talk about because you're going to try to partner together on a project or the next 3 or 4 months? And product knowledges. You get inundated, I know you do. I know you do. One of the key things is be really upfront with them and tell them how much time you're giving them. Because if they don't ask, shame on them. Because again, I've done them and I continue to do them, I enjoy them, but I have to know going in how much time I've got. Because everything in life you can break down to must know, should know, and nice to know. And some groups out there that we have a very good relationship with, they want to know some of that nice to know. Because that nice to know is going to set them apart from their competitor as it pertains to our line. But you establish the rules on how much time they've got. Okay? The other thing I would ask you to avoid, and this is another biggie. I personally see it every day. And sometimes it actually becomes, I was thinking of the word triangle, and then sometimes it ends up being a quadrangle. And that is that when you have a problem, you have a problem, you first become aware of it from a customer service rep. And a customer service rep says to you, I'm on it. I'm on it. You know how often the distributor then gets and calls the rep and doesn't tell the rep that already had the conversation with the CSR. And then say if the rep doesn't call them back within an hour, they call me. And they'll tell me they talked to downstairs and they've got a voicemail in with the rep. That becomes one vicious triangle, and you get nothing but miscommunication back. So when you pick who you're going to, give that party an opportunity. And most companies today have a pretty damn good CSR team. If you're going to get the rep involved, let the rep involved know the name of the young lady or young man who's taken on your challenge. There's CSR teams, we've got 6. There's CSR teams out there in Canada with 16. And I say to people, who are you talking to? I don't know. Whoa. So that's good on that. The discount definition. In the wearables industry, I always like to give credit where credit's due. When Gary Hurwitz owned Ash City, he made one of the best decisions, and some of you may not agree, but I'll tell you, one of the best decisions that I've ever seen done in the wearables industry, and that is he made the column status disappear. And he showed what was supposed to be perceived retail value, perceived value only on an A margin. Because prior to that, for the previous 15 years, almost always, when reps would do trade shows, rep shows, which still have a great place in the marketplace, the number of times customers would come in. And all too often, yes, it was the ones with the wagons, you know the wagons? And they just keep filling, you know? People would, their eyes, much like your customer in my opinion, where did one's eyes go to? They migrate over to end column. I say, you got to give me that price. I want that price. Because if you don't, how do you expect me to compete? The trader would expect you to compete with the value you're bringing to the transaction, your creativity. That's one reason I believe the women in this industry do so well is because they're more creative than we men. And this business is all about creative and marketing plans. And the women in our industry, distributors excel at that. I'm old school. Discount should be earned. Discount should be earned. But I'm not so naive that companies like ours that are new and emerging over the last number of years, you've got established discounts with our competitors. And because of that, you enjoy certain margins. And we come along and we'll, nope. Might be half a chance we don't even get an order. So talk to your rep and talk to a management team. The rep should be able to handle it on what we call trial discounts. Because if you like the line that much, and you think there's reason to compete and work with that company, and you don't want to always have the same stuff everybody's got on the same hangers, trial discounts are easy to be had. Establish the date. Maybe it's 6 months. Maybe you can arm wrestle for a year. That's what I call a win-win. And the professional suppliers in this industry will work with you on I'd be shocked if they're not working with you on a trial discount. Okay? Large quantity quotes with the Canadian dollar today. Wow. What can we say? Some of you have received, 3 price increases in 1 year? And last year, from about August on, most of the catalogs in this industry were not even valid on whatever discount that catalog showed. We sat in October and pegged ours, which we will launch tomorrow on Wednesday, and we pegged the dollar at 75 cents. Now, I happen to have some tremendous owners, private family, 2 private families, and we're over $100 million worldwide. And history is that they're just like me. They're going to pray that it comes back, And we will try to keep the integrity of our catalog throughout 2016. So therefore the quotes. Yes?
Sorry, did you skip number 3?
Did I? I'll go backwards. Distributor rep relationship?
2. Oh, okay. Well, on your sheet here.
Placing purchase. I apologize. It should roll out properly.
Okay.
Or you can deal with me one-on-one. Quotes, please don't ask them to last more than 30 to 60 days with the volatility of the dollar right now. Okay? And if you're doing offshore quotes, that will be normal. And please, another bugbear of mine, no more 2-year programs. We couldn't do those last year, never mind the year before. Your customers, they're in business. They understand the volatility of the currency today. We're doing right now 8 to 12 months, depending who the customer is, what's the size of the program, ba, 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 ba. And we will guarantee that price for a period of time. Sample purchase orders. I always believe every company has their own MIS system. I think it would be in your best interest to put your sample purchase orders on a separate PO. And if you're sending 2 POs, you can always mark ship with, ship with. Then the CSRs don't have to play with different discounts because that's all time, and time is money. And we come back to something a little later is everybody wants their goods out that day. So if you save your suppliers time, better chance your goods will go that day. So put them on a sample, on a separate PO. And in the wearables industry, most of us have a policy that says, if you're going to keep that sample, and quite often depending on the price of that sample, it doesn't pay you to pay the freight back. I always get shocked when somebody sends us a $10 polo back and it costs them $15 in freight. So take advantage of the 50 less 50 that most of the industry has. Look at your net investment and decide, of course, if it's multiplicity of garments, of course you may wish to send them back. But please, send back only what you've been authorized to send back. I worked out the numbers the other day. In my opinion, the wearables trade, 1 of the 6 orders that we ship gets returned. Just think about this for a second. We're a young company. We're growing nicely, yes. We're not the size of a few other people that you know in the trade that have been in business in Canada for 25 years. Many days, not just occasionally, we get a half a pallet a day back at Biz. Half a pallet. That means that some of those other unnamed companies are getting 4 to 5 pallets a day. And I know at least one of them that has 3 employees, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, clean up the goods, refold them, repackage them to put them back in stock so that if it's shipped to you next day, you're not going to refuse the goods. Sadly, and I ask all of you to think about how you're sending things back to suppliers, particularly the wearable suppliers. Hard goods suppliers not as difficult because it all costs money. It all costs money. And because in our case, where a lot of people send us more than what they asked to send back, we've actually had to institute a form. We had to institute a form and say, please, in this form, from what invoice are the garments you truly are sending us back? And that request should come within 60 days. Yeah, we break the rules at times, especially for something we're talking about for the right customer, because your customer abused it and they left it in their garage. Self-promotion pricing? Don't be afraid to ask. You want to do a dozen polos next year for 12 of your best customers, and you want to have your logo on there and maybe some co-branding for that particular supplier? Reach out and ask. Most of the companies have self-promotion pricing. That's over and above probably the price. It is. It's over and above the price that anybody's paying in the room today. But don't quote me. Just know that it's there. Clearance purchase orders, I also would ask you to treat those as separate orders. If you can in your systems, treat them as separate. And you know, the hardest thing in our industry for a wearable supplier to do is get rid of clearance inventory. Because all too often when I was an agent, here's the answer I would get. Oh, no, George. No, we don't touch clearance. We don't even look at clearance. Well, why is that? Well, by the time I put an effort in, it's gone. Meanwhile, I've been part of companies with 800,000 pieces in the warehouse with size curves that are absolutely perfect. They're not broken. And they're at prices at less than half what they were last year. I'm appealing to you that whenever you are in a position and a customer is after you for best price and he wants to stretch price, quality, value, have a look at the trades clearances. There's some gems out there. And guess what? If you have that relationship we're talking about with that supplier, will suppliers put those good, you give them, you think you need 100. You give them a size curve for 150, you ask them to put it away for 24 hours. Can you hold this for me for a day? If you have the relationship with that supplier, I'd be shocked if they said no. So your customer's got one day to give you that final size curve that you need, and you can go in and make that sale with confidence. And again, two or more POs in one day. Don't assume that any system in Canada is going to pick up the fact that you only want one freight bill. Mark on the second one, ship with, ship with. CSRs are sharp. They'll pick up on that. Okay? They should be able to pick on that you want it shipped with. That other fax that, or that other email purchase order that came in right behind, but for your own reason, you've got two POs, much like we talked about here. Ship with. I slipped ahead. Return authorizations, quality of returns, we talked about that. With wearables too, and I would think it's true of hard goods because I'm thinking of, I just bought a couple of watches from Boulevard. Now I could have borrowed them. Say I was a distributor, and I noticed there's a beautiful collar around that watch, right? That casing, and it's got the Boulevard style number and all that other good stuff. Well, I can't imagine as a distributor that if I borrowed that and I sent it to my distributor, I'm going to send that back to Boulevard without the collar? I hope not. And with the wearables industry, we know sometimes it's difficult to have the bag that we send it to you in. But all too often, again, the buttons are all undone and the tags, the important tags, are all gone. They're gone bye-bye. And then everything's rolled up in a Purolator bag and sent back like a softball. We have to be competitive, and all of these things cost us money. The famous must ship today. There are 4 months a year, probably October, November, and probably May and June. I can go down to customer service, I can grab a bunch of new orders coming in, and all too often it's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Vancouver, which means it's 5 o'clock in Toronto. And I will tell you that 6 out of those orders all have must ship today. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. As if, and some of them aren't stamps. I think some of them are stamps. Must go today. Must go today. 24 hours. That's all we ask as an industry. For those of us that do not decorate, can we please have 24 hours? And if not, our rule of thumb is if we arrive in the morning and your order is there, and we say 10 o'clock BC time, we do our damnedest, our absolute damnedest to get it out the door for you with your confirmation. If you don't get a confirmation, you're going to get a phone call. We talked earlier about the cell number on the PO. That may help you, especially if you wrote must ship today. Now we can't get a hold of you. Whoops. Don't get me going on this one. The millions of dollars, the virtual millions of dollars that are in warehouses in Canada to support our industry today, the number would blow you away. And you know what? It's all risk inventory. So if my wife drags me out to some sort of social function and I end up meeting a bunch of people that don't know our industry and they ask me what I do, and after a drink or two, I get chatting with the guy who really is keen on what I do. And I tell him our model. Our model. We carry 1.4 million garments, and we don't have any business unless the phone rings in the morning. And the look on their faces are like, are you freaking brain dead? Hold it. And they'll have to ask me, repeat it. What about your bookings, your future orders, like the retail world? No, there aren't any. Oh, he said, you guys are nuts. All we ask in return is that when you're making that sale, and I'm going to say, and by the way, today the average sale in wearables has gone from the high in the 90s of around 20 some odd pieces, it's about 18 pieces today. Some of you know that number. When you get into the larger orders, and most of the websites, ours is being upgraded, will have either live inventory or a green, red, yellow coding on the status of how their inventory is doing. Check. Before you step out and tell that customer you're going to get him 144 of something, and it's your integrity. Oh yeah, I'm getting that for you. I'm getting it for you. And yet it might be the hottest item in the line shown at the show tomorrow, and you're phoning in May, and you guaranteed him. Now when you call, we've just stolen your firstborn child. We have. All hell's breaking loose. You're like charging us for the Tylenol. So it's the one thing you can do to help your own integrity, never mind ours. All we can do is try. And with new items, there's no history. There's no history. We build what we think we're going to sell. Now, the following few years, as we have history, maybe there's a little shame on you for not having the right amount of inventory. And in these trying times, I know this, that many of you have told me in the last 12 months, one of the problems in the industry is there's not the commitment by many of suppliers to the inventory that it once was. Isn't that another reason why you want to call? So if today we've saved you time in other areas, that's one area I don't want to save you any time in. Because we want you guys to build your integrity. Companies like ours do not sell direct. We do not sell direct at any level. Any government RFQ? Nothing. You are our downline. We're all about partnering with you, not working behind your backs. If anybody wants to write this name down, I tripped on a book about 3 months ago that Stephen Covey has been one of my favorite authors. And early in my years with PPPC, and I think it was either ASI or PPI in the States, Stephen Covey spoke. Jamie, remember, Stephen Covey was the speaker. It was awesome on the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Well, his son, who broke away from dad and did his own thing for a while, Stephen Jr. has a book on the market called The Speed of Trust. And to end my presentation, isn't that what it's all about? Whether it's a relationship with your kids, your girlfriend, your wife, everything in life works on trust. And hopefully the business you're rewarding suppliers are those suppliers that have earned your trust. Not the ones that haven't and that continue to disappoint you and aren't keen to solve your problem because you're just account number 17934. It's all about trust. And for those of you who like to read a good business book, you can speed read it. It's excellent. It really, and the principles in there are life principles. They're principles that help us with all of our relationships, both in and out of the business. Just a couple of the CEO of Black & Decker. This book is exactly what business leaders need today. Stephen discusses with clarity and insight how trusted organizations do things better, faster, and at lower costs.
Let me just say that we put our entire management through the Speed of Trust workshop, and most of it's online. The whole thing is amazing.
Yep.
The concept. It's got an internet site that goes along with the book, and it's amazing.
Thank you for that. That's awesome. And the CEO of Sports Capital Partners, trust literally creates profit, success, and prosperity. So we're about 15 minutes early. Any questions? Any questions relative to some of these just basic principles? Some of you might say, well, I'm doing 2/3 of them now. If you are, congratulations. You are in the minority. You are in the minority. Absolutely. And I am happy to take, for those of you that don't want to break and go for coffee and you want to get to your emails or whatever, any comments from the room that you want to share with each other as we sit here today entering 2016, what would you individually as a person, or maybe 3 of you from the same company, like to see suppliers do better for you? Because you're going to talk to one supplier and I'm going to talk to my peers, of which is a good 8 to 10 that we work together closely all the time.
Mine's actually not for suppliers, but it's for other distributors. Comments that we get back when we have suppliers in for PK sessions. They're always quite alarmed that everyone on our team have their cell phones off and they're paying attention and there's not crickets. And everyone's engaged, and we get that a lot. I wouldn't expect anything less from my team, but apparently...
No, you've hit the nail on the head. That's what I'm hearing from my reps. All too often, under the table, this is going on, and there's no level of concentration at all. So again, I've heard too, there's some reps that are starting their PK, absolutely asking. Unlike that other commercial where they put it in a garburator, or the weed whacker thing, no, they're not doing that. But they're asking for people to turn their cell phones off for the time that you've allocated to them. Sure. Anybody else? Yes?
Well, just a comment. We're a distributor, and the 3 rules that we have for working with suppliers is, number 1, pay them on time. Because it's not your fault if the people we're working with don't pay us. And we started 20-some years ago, we were actually borrowing money, which is not smart. But that's the first thing. The second thing is we never beat anybody up on price. I mean, if it's a game-changing 50,000 dozen golf ball thing, yeah, maybe we'll ask. And the third thing is that we as distributors screw up probably 98% of the time. And I think you guys screw up like 2%. And when it is,
Where do I send you the check?
when it's actually your fault, the way we deal with it is say, here's the issue, what can you do to help me? And when you have a CSR who's expecting to get chewed out,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you're saying, whatever, what can you do? You're the president, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. So thank you for what you filled in our...
The test of a good supplier is how did they solve a problem that they created?
Yeah.
And that's a quote from one of my distributors in Vancouver, and it's so true. How do they solve a problem that they created, and how quick do they solve it for you?
I vote for distributors too.
Yeah, and actually admit it. But it is all about partnership. For the years I have left in this industry, I don't see the model, the traditional model. And I guess if I'm allowed, I'll say one last thing. And I recently read it. ASI, I know we're here with PPPC, but ASI just put out their top 50 most influential people in the United States. And they interviewed at least 8 of them in the book. And the concern, the absolute concern, suppliers have to have regarding distributors importing direct behind their back. Because sometimes those Chinese boxes are sitting at the front, just been delivered by FedEx, or they're at the back and the reps are expected to do this. You didn't see those boxes, did you? Ask yourself this. Even though it worked for you and your customer, is it good for our industry? Is it good for our industry? I remember, and again, I got a couple of minutes, storytelling. I moved out to BC, and a customer's become a real friend, he and his wife. They were the closest call to my house. And they had one of these garage situations. They did a nice job. They cleaned out the garage, walls, heater, everything. That was their office. And I worked with them closely, and because of that, we grew the business nicely together. And then he said to me one day, George, I think we need to take the next step up. So we want to get a street location. Good on you. Good on you. And I'd happened to get around Abbotsford a fair amount, so I found him a location. About 2 years later, I was stopping in on the way home. And I walked in, and this pungent odor just about knocked me on my you-know-what. What the hell is that, Don? Oh, he said, you smelled that, did you? What do you mean, did I smell it? It permeates your whole building. He said, come with me. So I went with him out back. It was like 5 o'clock, staff was gone. And he opened up this, whether it was FedEx or UPS there, it didn't matter, this envelope. Lanyards direct from China. Oh my God, you could have killed somebody with those things. Bet you there's lead from hell in that ink. He said, George, I don't know what I'm going to do. I got to deliver these things tomorrow. I said, no, you don't. You can't afford to deliver these things tomorrow. Come up with something. And then I gave him my speech. And he's been to trade shows. And there's what, 5 leading lanyard companies in Canada? And he had to go to China to save what? 65 cents a lanyard, maybe 50 cents? And now he's going to eat, I think it was 500 lanyards. That's the risk you take. Stephen.
We've never imported directly from China because that's what I see is quality control. If you don't have boots on the ground and inspect, then you don't know what you're going to get. But the suppliers, I'm not saying your company, but certain suppliers have created problems for themselves, starting with EQP. And then some people are getting EQP less 5, EQP less 10.
Right.
And there's corporations that are simply buying groups. There were individual corporations, now they're under one banner. They've joined together, 10 or 20 companies, and they're buying at much better prices from the suppliers. Not all the suppliers.
No.
Some suppliers won't cave in, and I hear they go to the suppliers and say, we want this price or we won't deal with you, but some suppliers do cave in.
Right.
So on the other hand, if I had a reliable supplier in China, why wouldn't I when they're offering these buying groups? I'm not saying everybody.
No, I agree.
How do you compete? Because it's not a level playing field. It's 10 individual companies that had individual names that have now come under one banner across Canada or across North America.
The catch-22 for a supplier who gives out deep discounts and gives them out too graciously or generously, I should say, is that what happens is, and I've had distributors tell me this as well, and some of you in the room may know what I'm talking about, and I won't name names, but there's certain catalogs today in the wearables industry, when you open them, they're telling me they've had customers go like this and hand it back and say, this is no deal. This is no deal. I was in the mall this weekend with my wife. Or that, oh my God, I was at Costco. So that's the problem. If they're giving away deep discounts way over here, guess who's paying for it? The first or second so-called column guy. So that's something they have to be aware of too. And it's catching up. It's catching up, for sure. So those that have, yes, please.
Sorry, quick thing. Because I know you mentioned you're going to be taking this back to other
Yeah.
suppliers and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Just something that's I've always been curious about. We're in the rewards and incentive industry. And I know that we have different incentives with suppliers for different discounts and that sort of thing, but it triggered when you were talking about doing, 12 polos with your logo and co-branding with your supplier. I've planted the seed a couple of times with suppliers as well, and I just don't see suppliers utilizing incentives or even promotional items at trade show booths the way in which we're trying to teach our
It's a good point.
clients how to use it. So I will say to my supplier, I would love to wear your logo across, like to earn a jacket or to earn whatever. So I was just curious.
Every company does their own. We have a staff wearables program. It's as or more generous than our showroom sample policy. So we believe in that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But you want to earn it.
Yeah, I know, but that's part of that whole package we've been talking about when that conversation comes out. Anybody from Quebec here? We have, I'll brag on his behalf. We have in Patrice Dulac one of the finest agents that I've ever met in my entire life. I wished I was half the agent this young man is. And as I travel Canada, you know what I respect about Patrice? We traveled rural Quebec for 2.5 days in November. And every meeting was on time. People were there to see us. They were happy to see us. And we had about 11 meetings, and never once did we take a sample in. We never took a sample in. They wanted to talk about the past, and I didn't have a lot of fires to put out, thank goodness. Hey, that's the odd thing, right? But they want to talk about the future. They want to talk about partnerships. They want to talk about their program business for 2016, and if I knew what was coming on now, could I let them know? But to go in, a lot of reps need the crutch of the rolling rack. You know, that's just part of how they should be working with you. Not just dog and pony. Not just dog and pony. Look, I promised to try to let you go early. I'm going to clean up. I got a sales meeting to go back to. So again, thank you so much for your time. I will say this. If any of you in coming by our booth during the next 2.5 days have any other comments you'd like to share with me privately, any comments that are, I'd love constructive criticism about my presentation, anything of that nature, and you want to invest that time, there will be a reward.